Is the Central City Revitalization Housing Committee report presentation. Mr. Pearsall, Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. The Central City Revitalization Housing Committee report begins with item 1. It was an ideal application from Brad Parks for 330 South York Street. You'll notice over in the right-hand column, it's voted unanimously 2-0. Councilman Kimball was excused from the meeting, so Councilwoman Craig and myself were the two present. With Mr. Parks' ideal application, it was pretty standard fare. He's opening an insurance agency. He was eligible for up to $4,488 in assistance for the interior and exterior upfit and improvements. The committee voted 2-0 to recommend granting that ideal application and approving the $4,488. And I would like to make that in the form of a motion for council to approve as well.
Is there a second to the motion?
Right here, sir.
All right, discussion. All in favor? Raise your hand, please. Okay.
Thank you.
Jenny?
Item number 2, we also had a lengthy discussion concerning parking in downtown, specifically with regard to the possible use of the lot at the corner of South Street and Franklin Boulevard for the art space development. Just to give you a quick synopsis of that, nothing was decided. We're not bringing forth anything to council to make a decision on. A lot of questions have been answered. There's still some questions out there. This would be the second meeting in a row where we've invited the neighboring businesses, churches, so forth to come and give comment. We want to make sure everybody has their chance to put it in and speak their mind. And also, even before the committee started meeting, staff was going out to these businesses and discussing with them and talking with them about what their concerns and so forth were. So as they come to these meetings and raise other issues, staff is continually going back and forth, and we certainly appreciate that dialogue that staff has had with them. But right now, that's just for information only on number 2. On item number 3, we had continued discussion on the Gastonia Building and Development Task Force. I see we've got a little acronym down there for them now, GBDTF. So if that's shorter, go for it, right? But it's a private sector group, and they were present for a follow-up discussion on their previous request for changes to the city's land development policy and to answer any questions by the committee. Staff advised the committee that the task force request to repeal the park and recreation fee ordinance and refund the revenues from those fees was scheduled for discussion at the April Planning Commission meeting. As you'll recall from my last report, that was recommended by the Central City Committee for that to go to the Planning Commission to decide on the fee. The task force also requested to implement a grandfather status to subdivisions that were approved prior to the implementation scheduled for discussion at the Council's Utilities Committee. This would also include discussion of the task force request to establish a policy to reimburse developers for costs of newly installed water and sewer lines. And the task force is moving forward with creation of subcommittees to review city design standards and compare them to other municipalities. Overall, the discussion by the committee, staff, and the task force concerning the pros and cons of issues outlined above continued, and the task force requested additional information from staff with regard to historical data associated with the referenced topics. The committee accepted the discussion for informational purposes and no action was taken. The committee directed staff to assemble any available information as requested by the task force and forward to them accordingly. Just to give you a breakdown of that, the main thing that the Housing Committee will be looking at is the second bullet point of implementing a grandfather status to subdivisions that were approved prior to the implementation of the system expansion fee. And there has been several requests from builders and developers that, before the recession hit, prior to the fees, the system expansion fees, they had budgeted certain things for development. The recession hit. They couldn't build. Now they're going back to start those. These expansion fees weren't in those budgets. They're not finding it very cost effective to go back to these developments and continue building. So We're asking staff to put together some numbers of what the impact to our budget would be if we were to grandfather these, if we weren't to grandfather them, how much money's been collected on them so far. So a lot of information there.
Just as a point of interest too, it's not trying to do away with the system expansion fee at all.
Correct, and we should make that point. Mr. Sosby, who heads up that task force, is here if anybody has any questions for him, but he made it very clear in our meeting they're not asking us to do away with the expansion fee. They're just saying for certain developments, and they're looking for direction, and they're willing to discuss with staff what the criteria should be to grandfather something in. You know, not everybody can just step up to the plate and say we should be, and you know, use the grandfather clause, whatever. They're just wanting some dialogue so that maybe it can be set up so that if you started a development at a certain time, you won't pay those expansion fees if you go in and finish that development, if that makes sense. Any questions? Mr. Sosby made himself available today if you have questions. You have a question? No, ma'am.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kemp.
Thank you, Your Honor. Todd, again, I apologize for being out of town last time, and maybe this was covered. I just would like some clarification either for you or from the reps out there. If in fact we had a particular project that was sold to another developer, where do we stand, or was that even discussed as far as the grandfathering if the project was in fact approved, platted? Had we discussed that at all? Or?
That, Mr. Sosby is here, but that would be one of the things that we're looking for insight on, because if it was approved and platted, obviously it's a development. Is ownership going to be one of the things that grandfathers it? Does it have to be the original owner or not the original owner? That kind of thing. So.
Again, and I apologize for not being at the last meeting. That's kind of what I was. It seems, and I'd really like to hear from you. It seems that would be a positive selling point, if you will, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to lean a little bit on your expertise in this area. What's your thought?
It would be a definite benefit to not count ownership, because a lot of the folks lost those properties. They went into foreclosure, a bank has taken them, another developer has come into town and wanting to step up and finish what we're calling the PVC farms we see around the city. So we think it would be a big benefit to not have those fees added in now, because they weren't budgeted the first time. If we can sell those projects as being approved before the fees were done, to not add them now would be an additional selling point to the new buyers coming in and trying to pick up an old project and move it forward.
Okay. Again, thank you. That was my perspective, but I kind of wanted to hear from you too, because not in the building business.
Right,
Thank you.
because a lot of those have, like I say, been foreclosed or been sold, so to put an ownership restraint upon it would really sort of defeat the purpose in a way, because a lot of them have changed hands since the downturn in the recession in 2008.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions for
Question.
Mr. Sosby while he's here? Thank you, Gerald, for being here.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Brad.
Moving on to item number 4, just a general breakdown of that. There are some offices above the building that's on Arts on Main, and the committee voted unanimously 2-0 to recommend to the full council that the city manager be authorized to approve short-term leases, which would be a month-to-month, for the second floor spaces based on square footage with a 30-day termination notice. And the reason, just to let you know that it's short-term, is if it's longer than a year, the full council would have to vote on it. So there's about 6 office spaces up there, and to save, I don't think this council wants to get bogged down every time somebody wants to do a lease, and it has to come, I mean, every meeting we could be voting on a simple office little lease. So we said if someone wants to lease that space and they're willing to do month to month, then the city manager could be authorized to approve that lease. And that would be extra income on that building to help pay for maintenance. We all know art space on the lower level what they pay doesn't fully cover for maintenance and utility bills. So this would be an added stream of revenue for that building. And we felt very positive about that. It felt like it was a good idea to let Mr. Munn have the say-so on those leases. So I would like to make a motion to the council that we approve, the city manager be authorized to approve the short-term leases month to month for second floor spaces based on square footage with a 30-day termination notice.
I will second that.
Discussion? All in
Question.
favor?
No.
Yes, sir.
How would the person get into the building? Do they have to go through Art Space itself? I mean,
Yeah.
isn't there some type of,
The city
Risk
staff
also?
has, there's a second door, and probably Mr. Munn
Yeah.
can describe all this better, but it's all been worked out for second floor
Yeah, you
access.
can go in without going in, like they used to at the bank after hours.
Yeah. The building has different doors. The way it's configured, if they happen to be artists and we're part of the artist group, then we could keep them all together. But if they're not part of the artist group, there is a separate exit point for this section of offices that we can occupy on the second floor. And they would actually come straight down to Main. Just,
Front and back, if I remember correctly.
no one will be living there, it'd just be for offices?
yes, correct.
And isn't there asbestos up on the second floor?
Not in these.
There is on the second floor, but not in this area. What we've done is we've cordoned off that area where the asbestos is, and that area is not part of the area that we're talking about here.
So we're not going to be liable, like 10 years down the road, this person comes back to us and says, it's because I was there.
There is no friable asbestos in this area that we would be leasing. We have had that checked. Yes, if in case we would discover any later or anything, but we've already checked that property. But we would not ever lease property that we knew of that would have any sort of friable asbestos.
Doctor?
I understand, the not having a full year lease because of the issues with that, but where's the break even on, having a short-term lease and the city having to administer the process, the paperwork, I don't know, you taking a deposit, I mean, is this good business sense to have month-to-month leases?
We think it's good business sense this way because currently the city has to pay for the utilities on the entire building. If we actually get more people paying rent, that money can go to the fund that helps offset that cost. So we're already there and we're already maintaining those facilities. The heating and air conditioning system's actually connected up to these second areas. So it seems like it's a way that we're able to bring some more dollars to the table because that building, and it's actually 3 different buildings, will need some additional work beyond just paying the utilities. The heating systems, the air conditioning systems, and others will need some repairs. So the more tenants that we have paying into the system, the better off it is for the city.
Is your concern the month-to-month?
Yeah.
A month-to-month can be perpetual. It automatically renews. They don't come in every month and we redo
No,
paperwork.
I understand that, but, if somebody comes in and they're gone in 2 months, and then somebody else comes in for 2 months, and, somebody in city staff is having to, process all this paperwork, and, I just didn't know if that was, if you needed a 3-month lease or a 6-month lease, to not have that be an issue.
Right.
I think we would operate under some discretion. Actually, for a long time, the barbershop across the street was month to month, and they weren't going anywhere. We weren't trying to push them out. We would try to be able to keep those folks there as long as we could. The issue, I think, is too with 212 West Main. What's the long term there? We all want to see that building converted really out of city hands entirely, but we are awaiting that financial arrangement so that we can do it. But in the meantime, if there's leasable space and we can bring more people downtown and we can actually lower our costs, we think we probably should do it then.
A couple things that, so in other words, we would be, whatever the market value would be, I'm not really up on what we'd be asking, or maybe if we have, I assume we have a dollar amount in mind, kind of what Dave said, a break-even point at least, number one. And number two, we're going to be in a, I guess it would be Rachel's area, we're going to be in a proactive advertising to get the word out, other than obviously this television program, that we're going to be looking for tenants.
Yes, we'll do that, and the rent that we would charge would be similar to what is charged on the first floor. It's actually discounted, though. There's a base rent for the artist, but then if they work in the shop, then their rent is discounted. For these upstairs units, if they have nothing to do with the artist, well, they're not going to get any discount. They'll just pay the regular rate. But if they happen to be artists and they are working in the shop, then they would get the discount. and operate it that way.
Thank you.
Okay. That it?
I had a motion and a second.
Call for vote.
I've already put that.
It's been that long ago.
Yeah. Okay. Are you talking about, you've had a motion and a second?
I made the
on
motion.
Item number 4.
Right.
Okay, that's what you're, okay.
Yes, sir.
Good. Any other
And
discussion?
Mr.
All in
Kimball.
favor of item 4? Okay, got it.
And that concludes my report, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Item 6, 2014 advocacy agenda. Ed?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is an update from last year. We discussed this at last city council meeting. We were asked to bring this back to the city council. There are just a few changes from last year. There is a reference to the discussion they have in Raleigh discussing our privilege license. There is also a mention here of the interest of trying to get more serious penalties for people that dump in sewer systems. That's also included here. Our advocacy agenda may change. In fact, just today we got some information that the state may be looking favorably toward innovative approaches to water treatment. And there may be a bill that might be to our advantage to be able to move through the state legislature that would provide funding for our water plant. So there are things that we may be adding to this as the session goes on. But if, I don't know, the council's had a chance to take a look at this. If you have any questions, we can approve this tonight, or you can study it later and approve it at the next meeting.
What's your pleasure?
All right.
Likewise, I'll make a motion to approve tonight.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
When's this
Can
gonna
I make one
When's this
suggestion?
gonna go
I didn't
out?
see it in here, maybe I overlooked it.
When's it gonna be sent to the?
We've talked about it before, putting the moped
So I
issue
shouldn't have to do it again.
in our advocacy. I didn't see the moped issue. Is that in here?
The MOPE.
Yes,
talked
we had it
about-
last year.
We talked about it last year.
That's
and said we're
correct.
gonna
We
put it
adopted
in,
it last year as well.
Where mopeds not required to have insurance, all that kind of stuff.
Let me add that then. That's right, we had that conversation last year.
It's really a problem.
Okay, let me get the wording, and we'll bring that back to the council meeting at our next council meeting.
Yeah.
Meantime, between now and then, can we call and add things to it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. We have anything from the attorney's office?
No, I have nothing to report.
Okay. City manager?
No report.
Okay. Council reports, Ms. Craig?
No report.
He stepped
Mr.
away.
Pearsall?
No report.
Mr. Gallagher?
No report.
Dr. Curley?
No report.
Mr. Kimball?
Going to be personnel. I have two quick items. Number one, Counselor, I know that you've been, there's been a lot written on this, what's going on with the Whitewater Center payments. Do we have any updates on that?
I think actually the city manager has spoken.
Kick it back to you.
Yes, what was reported in the paper is the last information we have. What we did is we called Mecklenburg County in their finance department and said we would like to know what the specifics are of the concern. They said they would be getting back to us. They have not yet. If we don't hear, we'll call them back again on Monday, and we are monitoring that. We've already made our payment, but if we determine that there was incorrect information and we should have a refund, then we will certainly pursue that. But so far, no additional information from what's been in the newspaper.
Thank you, sir. Second thing, Flip, I'm going to call on you. After we made the modifications prior to the shopping season on Cox Road with the new signage, we had also talked about exploring the possibility on North Hope and I-85, and we did take a little bit of column A and column B and utilize them on North New Hope, and I believe you have that for the screen.
Yes, sir, Councilman, if they can put that up on from the Elmo. And this is actually a very good picture. We all take for granted that people who live here know how to get in and out the highway, but visitors is a little different. So we've added some overhead signage very similar to Cox Road. This picture on your screen now is actually southbound on New Hope Road. The new overhead signage, if you're going on 85 North, is right here. But if you look, this is kind of like Where's Waldo. If you look for the existing signage, you can barely see it here, and it kind of blends in with all the other signs and all the backdrop of the mall and everything else. But again, just recognizing that not everybody who comes here knows how to get on and off the highway. So we think that's a positive change, and actually we've already received several comments, even from residents, that now appreciate, again, just a reminder as they go there. And this is very similar as you're going northbound on New Hope Road, trying to get on I-85 south. And again, the overhead sign telling you which lane to be in ahead of time, so you have that pre-notice. So just some ongoing improvements that we think will help our traveling citizens and visitors to Gastonia.
Thank you, Flip. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Okay, one last quickie is I was very honored that the National Immigration and Naturalization Service, Homeland Security, asked me to speak to 35 new residents of this area yesterday. They are now citizens of the United States of America.
That's neat.
It was at the library in the pouring rain, so they were thrilled. So, certainly wish everyone a good evening, and we will. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?